Welcome to an all-new edition of Fanlight Zone Presents. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also the editor-chief here at FLZ. And folks, mark the date on the calendar now, September 2nd, Boom Studios. There is a book you cannot walk out of the comics shop without. You need multiple copies. I'm going to tell you right now. This is a kaiju story unlike anything you have ever seen, with characters you can rally behind, because if Philippe, Malik, and Jeannie are not on your minds when you leave that shop, you've done something wrong, and that means you have not picked up what's going to be the smash of 2026 for the fall quarter, and that is No Gods, No Masters. And we fortunately have the creative team here to join us, but the writer of this amazing book has another book out right now that you don't want to miss, with a social message, tapping into the supernatural as well, and that's BEAST of Boriken from Dark Horse Comics. But like I say, you know their work already from Frontera and Home and It's Only Teenage Wasteland, just to name a few. But when they've come together, they put out amazing stories like Blue Beetle, This Land Is Our Land. It is my honor and privilege to welcome the creative team behind No Gods, No Masters to the show. Please give it up for Julio Anta and Jacoby Salcedo. Guys, what is going on?
Thank you for having us. It's so good to be here. Yeah, banger intro.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you. No, thank you. You guys deserve all the accolades. And this story is definitely going to be one that fans are going to be talking about. But Julio, we got to dive into Beast of Boriken first, because this story out right now, issue 2 will be out this week when the episode drops. How did this whole story come to be?
Yeah, I think like most stories, most of my stories at least, they all come from very disparate places. And then there's some point in time where it all clicks and I realize, oh, this is all the same story. So I would say the first place this came from is from my love of Creature from the Black Lagoon. And always, growing up watching the Universal Monster movies and always wanting to make my own eventually. And because my interests in storytelling normally lies, within Latin America and Latin American folklore, the Chupacabras was just like an obvious entry point into that. And then on the other hand, the sort of like political thriller aspect of this story comes from my own curiosity and my own activism and my own desire to understand more about the world. So I found out about what was happening in Puerto Rico in terms of US and European investors coming into the island, bribing corrupt political officials to allow them to build luxury hotels and developments on what should be protected and public land. And really, what all this does is it displaces people, it displaces wildlife. And there's been this huge backlash, this huge activist class that has been built out of this struggle, essentially. So I learned about this, watching videos on Instagram and YouTube. And then eventually I got involved with activists here in New York City to fight against a project called Essentia, which is one of the main inspirations behind the development project that our activist in Beast of Boriken is fighting against in our story.
And that's definitely, like I say, it has such a powerful social message behind it too. I would say, I think you kind of nailed it, but when my co-host is here, he always asks, what is the elevator pitch for the story? What is the elevator pitch for Beast of Boriken?
Yeah, I would say that it is one part horror creature feature, tropical horror comic book, and on the other hand, it is a political thriller, and it is about an activist named Loli who is fighting against this luxury development that's going to be built in her hometown of Aguadilla. She's someone who survived and was radicalized by Hurricane Maria and the US response to it, which was, one that ignored the Puerto Rican people, that let them to sort of languish as colonial subjects of the United States without any support during this natural disaster. And one day, while she is protesting the groundbreaking of this hotel, a centuries-old chupacabras is awoken who, seeks bloody revenge. And, eventually they will come to see each other in each other's eyes and see that their struggles are interlinked. One is like this monstrous creature, and one is of an activist who's fed up with the way that her country is being treated.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell that impact in issue 1, teasing a little bit. Issue 1 is out right now, so that's not really a spoiler, but man, when you really start diving into this story, it really is packing that punch. And especially to walk a line with the social message behind it and the supernatural. Did you find there was a real difficult line to walk, or did you find yourself leaning into one direction more than the other at times?
No, I mean, I think, I write the books that I want to read. you
Okay.
know, and I wanted to read a supernatural tropical horror story about issues that are I'm passionate about, you know? So I think the story of this like tabloid creature, once I made the decision to shift him from being like this, you know, this tabloid creature that, you know, we've seen on TV, we've seen sort of like made a mockery of, and instead shift him to being like a protector of the Puerto Rican people. All of it came together, and the political, the horror, the cultural aspects, they're all intertwined. You know, I think especially with a place like Puerto Rico, where the history of Puerto Rico is something that is so politicized because of the Spanish invasion, because of the US invasion, and now the colonial status of the island. Any story that you tell that actually treats the setting, the island of Puerto Rico with respect, will be a political story. So even if I am writing, you know, a tropical horror creature feature, if I'm doing the island justice, it will be you know, inherently political.
And Jacoby, I know you weren't the artist on this book, but I mean, Daniel Irizarry did a phenomenal job with this.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah. Dealing with a story that does have supernatural aspects to it, what do you think is the key component, like for you as an artist, that you really have to convey to the audience?
Honestly, I feel like with comics, it's a bit harder to like show like that horror because I feel like you don't have, audio or really like that jump scare aspect. So I think for me, it's all about like controlling like page turns, which
Mhm.
Julio and like we'll talk about it more for No Gods, but like we're like really trying to use those page turns as much as possible. And he's a smart guy and knows where the pages are turning.
I can
I've
do a little math. I
yeah.
know where the numbers
I've
mean.
written for myself a couple times and I'm like, oh shoot, I should have just done it on this page. You can reveal stuff.
I
But I
also
feel
want to
like
say that Jacoby is the first person who ever drew our chupacabras
oh,
for
that is
BEAST of
true.
Boriken. It's a very different design, but when I initially pitched this project, it was just as a writer, you know, and I was already thinking about Danielle as the artist, but I pitched it and I just asked Jacoby to draw like a quick little design for what the chupacabras would look like. His version was a little bit more of like a furry kind of
More
unintentional
dog
furry.
light, yeah.
Yeah. But then, you know, then he had knocked it out of the park. You know, he kind
Yeah.
of like built on what, you know, what I was saying to Jacoby and like a lot of the cultural aspects that went into the creature design. But Jacoby was actually the first one who ever drew this character.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that Danielle did it because I mean like there's this thing like to like kind of go back to like Frontera. Like my dad, he's from Mexico, so like that book I know like a lot more of that culture. Whereas like Beast of Boriken is based in Puerto Rican culture, so it's just like Danielle's from Puerto Rico, and like it would I wouldn't have done that book justice or really that character justice. And Danielle, I mean, like when Julio sent me like the first pages and character designs, I was just like, yeah, I'm glad I think you chose the right artist for that one.
Yeah, Jacoby tends to get first dibs on all my stories. You know, I'm always sending him ideas, and he's like, "All right, you know, we're busy right now with whatever book, but put that one on the back burner and let me know
Yeah,
when you're ready to do that story." But yeah,
yeah,
this was a good one to do with Daniel.
Yeah, and it definitely knocks it out of the park. I mean, like I say, I can't speak highly enough about this book, and especially like Loli as the character there, because she's so fierce in her beliefs in that, and translating that into comic form. I mean, I would say that's a challenge, but I think honestly that's just a reflection of just the actions of the people. Would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Loli's character is a kind of person that I'm super familiar with from organizing in activist circles. She's someone who is super, she's very effective organizer and activist because she is driven by so much personal anger. You
Mhm.
know, there's a lot of things that she can and is angry about. But people like her also suffer from burnout and from other parts of their lives suffering from this sort of like single-minded goal of, you know, whatever your fight is, right? Which is like, again, very effective in uh you know, achieving material goals and succeeding. But I think the struggle that Loli has throughout this book, and we see it in the first issue, is that she begins to neglect her mother, who is, you know, also survived Maria with her, a very traumatic experience. And she needs to find a way to move past the anger as a stimulant for everything that she does and find a way to sort of live a more peaceful life while still doing the activism that she's very passionate about, but without letting it consume the rest of her life, essentially.
Yeah, because I mean, just like I say, that first introduction, she makes such a powerful statement just with her interactions with somebody she's debating with. Like I say, I don't want to give
Yeah,
any spoilers, even though the book is out, because I want everybody to go buy copies of this. But
yeah.
it makes such a first impression coming across the page, and for both of you, I mean, this does deal with a lot of social issues. What do you think comics is the perfect medium to present stories like this in?
Comics obviously has a long history of using creators have a long history of using the comics medium to reflect the world around them. You know, obviously Marvel's tagline is the world outside your window, right? And sometimes the world outside our window is not just, you know, Spider-Man swinging around. Sometimes it is Captain America punching Hitler. Sometimes it is you know, using stories to reflect what's really happening in the world and really wrestle with issues of identity, with issues of, you know, domestic and global politics. So I think we have a history of that, but I think also just like every medium, you know, I'll just use myself as an example. I again, like I said, I write the things that I want to read, and I come from a school of thought that says we if we want to make real art, if we want to make art that is true and truly affects people, it has to be real. It has to be a mirror that reflects back the real world. And whether I am someone who ended up making films or ended up writing novels or ended up making whatever anything creative, I was always going to do that with my art personally. And there's a lot of other comic creators that have done that and are doing that. And I also think that comics as a medium, you know, Jacoby talked about this a little bit, but you can control the pacing in really interesting ways that you can't in a novel, you can't in a film. And it really lets you empathize with people. I mean, I think comics and all medium have the ability to be like empathy generating machines. You know, my first book, Home, was about a 12-year-old boy separated from his mom at the border, you know, during the 2018 family separation crisis. And I think that for a lot of people, this was the first time that they read this kind of story in the comics format, you know, and it allowed them to empathize with this character that maybe they would never meet in real life, but because they're picking up these comics, you know, they're getting to really see that character on a really personal level.
I would also say accessibility too, because I mean, like, I feel like comics are very like kind of straightforward. Not to be like comics are dumb, but like you know they're just like pretty straightforward. And like I mean, for example, Mouse, I feel like that's like a huge
Mm-hmm.
one. Like so much because it's such an accessible story and like you get the point of it, and that's why it's like read in so many like classrooms and like even our books like Frontera is like read in like college classrooms because we are able to tell the story that is accessible and entertaining, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
say because of the comic book format. You know, like you're not just reading a book, which you know for some people, me, I'm just like snooze fest. You know, this is boring.
Yeah, to Jacoby's point about classrooms, you know, all of our books have been, you know, we have teachers' guides for all of our books to make it easier for teachers to incorporate books into our comics into their curriculum. And oftentimes it is that accessibility factor of like whether it's a elementary, middle school, high school, or even college student, they would rather read a comic or graphic novel, you know.
Yeah.
And the comics medium also allows us to again, using the example Frontera, instead of trying to describe what the Sonoran Desert looks like and having a reader maybe confuse it for like a sort of sandy desert like the Saharan Desert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we put it on the page and Jacoby uses reference to, you know, really draw things as true and intimately as possible. And readers can see just how beautiful the Sonoran Desert is and how dangerous it can be as well. So I think it's a unique medium where we can really just like really I think just like get people in as close as possible to these stories.
No, I fully agree. I think just with how the setup is and what Jacoby was alluding to about how simplistic the setup is, but when you add the pictures, you add the words, it's a medium that I think just can connect on no matter where your attention span is to really hit the points with. it's something that once it locks you in, it locks you in. And comics has always been based around politics too, like you alluded to, Julio. And it's just been something that I think is just the easiest medium to express stories like this and really do it the right way. I don't want to spoil anything coming out with Beasts of Boriken, but what can you tease us about what is coming out with the next few issues here?
Yeah, so issue 2 hits comic shops on August 12th, which should be the coming Wednesday. And in this issue, we end issue 1 with both our protagonist and our antagonist, Loli and Simon Hunt, the developer. They both have a lot of questions. They've both experienced the chupacabra right in front of them for the first time. And now they both sort of go on their own parallel journeys to try to find answers. Loli's is one where she goes to speak to a spiritualist at a botanica in Aguadilla, which is like, she does this spiritual ceremony where she comes to learn more information. And Hunt, obviously, his methods are a lot more sinister. But, they both go on these journeys to try to find out more about this chupacabras, while the chupacabra continues on his own journey. So, we have these sort of parallel or 3 paths that we follow in issue 2 that brings us closer to, learning more about all these characters.
Yeah, and like we say, the series is amazing. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure to check out issue 1, get issue 2. And while you're there, if for whatever reason you didn't order on the FOC date, I'm gonna let it slide this one time. But while you're there, you better go to your pull list, to your shops, and make sure that No Gods, No Masters is in there for September 2nd, because we have to now break this down. How did this whole story come to be?
Yeah, we love kaijus. Surprise.
We're big kaiju fans over here.
Yeah, I don't have my toy wall right now.
Yeah.
I usually have toys behind me. When Julio and I started working together, which was like over 7 years ago now, we kind of like started chit-chatting and was like, oh wait, you like kaijus? I like kaijus. We got to do something with that. And yeah, a kaiju story has been brewing for as long as we've been working on other projects. And then Julio kind of hit me with the initial idea of No Gods, No Masters. And I was like, okay, I think that's the one. And once we finally had time in our schedule to finally put something together, we got this beautiful book. And boom, our editor Ramiro was so down for it. So like we've had like the super huge support system for it. And we also brought in our colors, Francesco Segala from This Land Is Our Land. So like we're getting like this big awesome group
Band
of
is back
friends.
together.
Yeah, the band's back together. So yeah, no, that is kind of the history.
Yeah, like Jacoby said, we've both like grown up watching kaiju movies, watching Godzilla movies, Ultraman, all that stuff. And we've been wanting to do a story involving kaijus for a long time, but it is a book. It is a book written by me. It's a book drawn by Jacoby. So it is a book through the lens of our very specific point of view and our very specific voice. So unlike, most kaiju movies where the protagonist is usually, maybe a scientist or someone in the military or a politician, somebody who's trying to stop the kaiju, our point of view instead is that of poor and working class kids who are just trying to survive it. I got back into comics as an adult by reading Walking Dead and reading Paper Girls. And Walking Dead, again, is not a story about people trying to stop the zombie apocalypse.
Right.
They're just trying to save each other, right? While dealing with some of the biggest threats that they deal with are not the zombies, but it's other people. And so that's sort of our big comp for this book. And the other one is Paper Girls, because again, we've been writing teenagers for a long time. We've been doing YA for a long time, and this is a decidedly adult series. But our protagonists are teenagers. It's a coming of age story. One of our characters, Felipe, is a recent arrival from Venezuela. He's a migrant. Jeannie is a foster kid. And Malik is a star baseball player. And these are all like very different kids who have had their own struggles. They've been surviving long before the kaijus ever emerged. But now that they have emerged, they sort of form this family because they're the only people that they have left in each other's lives. And they go on a journey, essentially, and throughout it, there's a lot of, really fun kaiju action. But really, this is a story about how working class people survive in a world that is increasingly hostile.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're both super excited. It's a book that we're both really proud of.
Yeah, I mean, obviously no spoilers, but that is probably the biggest point that's gonna really sell the audience on is the characters because you can't help but get behind them. Like from the initial output, and like I say, no spoilers, everybody. Go out buy books, buy multiple copies. But you're gonna get hooked into their stories as they progress. And like I say, just issue one is just buckle in and get ready. You're not I don't even think you're gonna be ready when you have it. So that's why you need a second copy. But going to the creative process, this is the first book that you guys have officially worked together on since Blue Beetle, This Land Is Your Land, correct? Since 2024.
It's the first
Yeah.
one that's being released, but
Yeah.
sometimes things come out of order. So our next book is already completed, and that'll come out in April. And that's for younger readers, a graphic novel. But yeah, so this is our fourth full length project. Because we started off working on mini comics before we ever made a graphic novel together. But this is the first thing that we will release since our Blue Beetle graphic novel.
I was going to say, obviously, you still have worked together since then, but what do you think has been the biggest creative jump for both of you working together, like the biggest noticeable change, if you will?
I feel like just skill. And I mean, like, I think the communication between us in a way has gotten less, but like it's because we know each other so well.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Like
No,
it's
it
just
makes
like
complete sense.
we're already reading each other's mind. And like usually if I do like a change for like anything that's different within the script, that won't change the whole story. I feel like there's no need to be like, Julio, I'm gonna do this, with every
Yeah.
single change. It's because it's just like he trusts my process, I trust his process, and it's just how we've been working now. We have tried the Marvel style one time, and that
Okay.
was a bit rough. I think that was also like 2 years into like our friendship, so it was just like maybe we could try again later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Jacoby was like, "I think I prefer it when you write panels, and I don't
Yeah.
have to figure everything out."
Your track record speaks for itself. Like I say, the work that's come out, it just you can definitely tell there's that synergy there, and especially having that trust factor, and especially for Julio, for you for writing this, the difficulty of writing these kids in this sci-fi element. Like, I mean, because sci-fi can go a lot of different ways. Would you say it was more challenging, or just kind of an easy progression to get these characters established into this world? Because, like I say, once the moment happens, the story completely flips on itself.
Yeah, ever since my first book, I've been writing hyper grounded stories, but with one supernatural element. So
Mhm.
with my book Home, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but this immigrant kid separated from his mom at the border. It's a very real thing that's happened to a lot of people. We've all seen it on the news, but he has superpowers. So now there is one thing that is different about him as a character that changes the entire story. And the same with Frontera, there's a ghost and it's a sort of ghost story. And here it's again stories about survivors who have had very difficult lives before our story even began. But now there's a kaiju apocalypse that again flips the script and changes the story completely. So I don't know if it was difficult. For me, I think it was just mostly exciting. We've been dreaming about this story for so long. I've had different versions of it in my head. We've talked about different versions of this story for a long time. But then getting together with our editor Ramiro, who is also a really good friend of ours, just outside of making comics, we were friends before we ever even had a conversation about making a book together. It's been such a fun and exciting process. So any difficulty in scripting is kind of superseded by the excitement, I think.
No, that's awesome because especially to trying to juggle those elements, that can be a little tricky, but I mean, it definitely comes across, I want to say flawlessly for you and how you present this because you instantly fall in love with these characters. And then when the moment happens, like everything kind of goes a little crazy, but they still have those core ethics that, you're going to gravitate to once you get into the story about it. And
Yeah.
Jacoby,
And I'll say also one last thing is that this is also, I think, the most fun book that we've ever worked on.
Yeah.
Like issue one is definitely like, it's an issue one. We're setting up the world, a lot of things are going to happen in it. But in future issues, like we really lean into the action of these kids fighting kaijus and having to survive. And I think it really is like some of the most fun that I've had writing and seeing Jacoby's pages come in. So like right now, he's just started turning in pages for issue 4, and that has a huge action scene that is probably like the most fun I've had writing. So I'm really excited for people to see it.
I'm amped up for it. Just from what I've seen thus far, is like, man, fans really.
It gets crazier. It just gets crazier.
Like I say, I can't go into spoilers, but I'm just like, I can only imagine how this goes. And Jacoby, for you, I mean, where are you drawing the inspiration for this? Because like for the creatures we've seen thus far, and like some of the scenes too, like this has been just mind blowing stuff.
Well, I mean, like Julio said, like the story is grounded. There's just like the supernatural element, and that's kind of like how I'm treating like a lot of our stories before. Is like, since they're so grounded, I want to make it feel that way. I don't want to I don't want that like reality to draw like more cartoony and take you out of that reality. Like I want it to feel like, okay, there is this real world, and then there's a giant ass kaiju attacking New York City, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So like that's really like the true inspiration for it, is try to make it as grounded as possible. Like, I'm a big sucker for Google Street View. So like
Okay.
I want this New York to feel like New York. I want it to feel lived in. Julio lives in New York. I've gone to school and lived in New York for like a couple months, and like, I'm well familiar with the area. I know that city pretty well. And so like, to me, I just wanted to like, if any reader in like Washington Heights, which like our story, initially starts in, like I want them to feel like, I know this building. That's kind of weird. That's my apartment.
That'd be
Like
awesome.
yeah, that would be awesome, and also probably scary for them a little bit, but just like, what the hell? Yeah, I guess it's just like trying to match that groundedness that Julio is emphasizing in the script and the story, up the skill and like detail that I want to like add to it, because it's our next book. So it's like, and we want this to be a hit. We're really excited about it. This has been brewing for so long. That's like, okay, we gotta like throw our all at this book, and Julio's been doing it, so I was like, I gotta match that. I gotta throw myself at it.
Yeah,
Well,
just to talk about the monster designs for a second, the kaiju designs.
Mhm.
They are inspired, and this will become a part of the story, so I don't want to like spoil too much. But they're inspired by real indigenous folkloric cryptids. So our main kaiju that you see in the issue, and you see in some of our variant covers, which we got amazing variant artists. We got Jen Bartel, Marcos Martin, who did an amazing job drawing our kaiju. But that kaiju is it is a monster that comes from North American indigenous folklore. And because that kaiju emerges here, that's where the inspiration comes from. And again, without spoiling, there is a second kaiju that is in another part of the world that also is inspired by a monster of that part of the world's indigenous folklore. So that's also a big part of where these designs come from. I sort of sent Jacoby all this reference, and then he made it his own.
Yeah. I mean, like, just to reflect the story and the context of everything going on. Like, I didn't, because there's like, loose images or just like drawings that were made of these folklore creatures, and it's like, I'm not gonna just do it one for one. I wanted to feel like, to match what the universe that we like are creating. So I think that was like a inspo and like a good base to work from.
It definitely comes across in issue 1. Like I say, no spoilers, but I really think there's a huge hit on your hands with this one. And obviously, keeping up with no spoilers, is there a certain character that you think is going to be the breakout of this series that you can allude to? If you can't, you can.
I really hope Jeannie does. I love drawing Jeannie. She's so much fun. I think Julio kind of wrote that character for me. Like, I just feel like, I don't know, that was just like a super fun character to design, and
Yeah, I think a lot
that's
of
my hope.
people. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that will relate to Genie. I really hope people fall in love with the little chibi version of our kaiju. You know, it's not actually part of the story, but I'll tell people who are watching this a little bit of like one of the cool things that we're doing in the book. But essentially, we have hidden at the end of the book. There's a little sort of ad that says, if you find the chibi version, like the little version of our kaiju, and it shows an image of him, scan the QR code and tell us where you found him hidden in the book. He's hidden in one panel throughout the book. And if you do that and you're one of the first to tell us, we're going to mail you a free bromide card that is of our kaiju, essentially. And so we already the first bromide card already came out during San Diego Comic-Con. Boom Studios, they gave it out during our panel. It was our kaiju attacking the San Diego Convention Center. And for those who don't know, a bromide card is like a postcard-sized trading card that was popularized in Japan around kaiju culture, essentially. So we're making our own. In every issue, there's going to be a chibi version of our kaiju hidden in the pages. And so every issue is an opportunity for people to, you know, go to their comic shop as quickly as possible, read the book, find him, scan the QR code, and be one of the first 100 people so that we can mail you one of these cards, and hopefully you can collect them all.
I mean, that's just, it's another fun part of the, you know, being a comic collector, especially like I love scavenger hunt stuff like this. Like, you know, we have to go look through the books and find that is just another reason to go get this book, folks. Like, we can't
exactly.
You know,
on day one.
Yes.
Knock down the door.
Yeah. Do not sleep on this. Do not wait till Thursday. You better be there when the shop opens up, and hopefully you ordered, you know, pre-ordered it, because if you didn't, you're going to be definitely missing out on something really, really special here. And especially for both you, obviously this has a huge sci-fi element to it. What do you think is the biggest draw for you as creators? Like, you know, the favorite part of creating in this realm?
You know, having fun with it. And also, you know, just like everyone, we're interested in so many different things. You know, like obviously Beast of Boriken is like my ode to universal monsters, but through my specific, you know, voice and point of view. And I love those movies. I've grown up watching those movies. And I also grew up watching kaiju movies. So it kind of like putting my mark on these different genres that I love and telling stories that are unique to my voice within all of those stories or within all those genres. So yeah, I think that for me is like the biggest thing, is just being able to make my kaiju book.
You know, both Julio and I, when we first started wanting to make comics, you know, we weren't expecting to do like a lot of these young adult graphic novels. So like we wanted to do like the big two, or just like, you know, adult books. So like being able to like have our first book together doing something like this, I think that was also a big part of it. It's like for me, I've always just wanted to draw like action and just stuff blowing up and buildings getting destroyed, and this book has all that stuff.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so like I feel like honestly, yeah, the first issue that you read is probably like our tamest issue. So like I'm just like yeah, just to throw that, you know.
It gets very violent, very gory.
It gets awesome.
Yeah, and we're very conscious about the fact that this is our first single issue series together. You know, this is a big moment for both of us that, like Jacoby said, we've been building up to for a long time. We love making our like young adult graphic novels, but this is a different audience, and this is an audience that maybe doesn't know our work together. Maybe, hopefully, they've read Beast of Boriken, and that also brings them to this. But you know, this is a book that we've been really excited about for a very long time. So we, you know, we're putting our all into issue one and then trying to top it every single issue.
That's the way to do it, though, because like I say, everybody, you know, it's kind of like a pro wrestling term. Like everybody says, or John Cena always would say his favorite match was his last one, you know, whatever that was. And that's kind of the mentality you have to have with the market too, especially yeah, exactly. We have a whole wrestling show. If you guys want to come back out for that, we can. But with the current state of the indie market too, like I say, this is a perfect time to drop this book. I mean, what do you think about the current? I would say it's a renaissance era. There's so many varieties of stories being told out there right now.
We love kaijus, and also like the kaiju like fandom. Like there's the Fubies, which are soft vinyl toys. There's the bromide cards that we're talking about. Like we're doing the bromide cards because this is our love letter to kaijus, and this is like you know, we don't have the budget to make toys, so like bro my cards are the next best option.
Mm.
And I feel
Yes,
like
yes. That's our ultimate end game with this book is to make
yeah,
toys.
we want to make toys,
I'm in.
honestly. That's it. Yeah. But I mean, like, I feel like people are so down to like readers and collectors are so down to just throw themselves at books. And like if we throw in this like bro my card, this Easter egg thing, this more interactive part of it, I feel like I think it can create a stronger readership. And I'm super excited about like how comics is kind of going through this renaissance.
Mhm.
And you know, obviously with the collector's market, it is sometimes you do feel a little like
Yeah.
grimy, I guess. But like I think there is a part of that, like seeing like so many now like comic reader influencers, which is like unheard of, like literally 2 years ago. And like
Yeah.
they all seem so excited and like all love the book, like the books that they're reading. So like, you know, shout out Absolute Batman for making that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not lost on us that like Godzilla Minus Zero is going to come out around the time that well during the time of our first 5 issues. Godzilla comics have never been this big, I don't
Mhm.
think. Like my perception of Godzilla comics right now is that they're as popular as they've ever been. And like Jacoby said, we see books like Dork blow up,
Yeah.
all sorts of other books that it's really difficult to know kind of like the why they blew up and like what caused it initially. So that's not something that we really think about because it's
Yeah.
totally out of our hands. Of course we would love for this to become the next Dork or whatever. I talked about this somewhere else, but uh, I tabled Brett Bean and I and Jacoby were all part of like the same comics convention company. And the year before, I guess Emerald City Comic Con, the year before, we tabled next to each other. And we were like, he was not the Brett Bean that now is like one of the biggest selling indie books in the market, and he
Yeah.
was telling me about this idea and it sounded really cool, the idea for Dork. But he had no clue that it would reach the heights that it's reached. For me, like, I think that's so inspiring, because he's making a story that I could tell back then he was super passionate about and that he was super excited about to make, even if nobody read it.
Mm.
And for it to be this huge hit, like that's the dream, to make the books that you want to make and then a bunch of other people love it too.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely reflective in the market because I think just when the fans who we've talked to, everybody just wants something different. Everybody wants something fresh. And when you have a book like Dork, that comes out and that really catches everybody off guard, it kind of does a little bit of inspiring for fans to go check out something else because they'll hear about
Yeah.
a word of mouth and then pick something up. And it's just that, word of mouth mentality, just kind of put it mildly, is just hearing about these books and especially seeing how fans are really diving into the indie scene right now because no matter where you're going, there's great stories every week on the shelves that you can jump into. And it's nothing against the big two by any stretch of the imagination, but for fans that really want something that's not anything like the normal, they can go pick up something on the shelf and instantly fall in love with it. And I think that we're seeing a lot more of that come into play, and we're seeing a lot more stories really reflecting passion projects that are coming out. It's just a win-win all around. And this one obviously is going to be one that everybody's going to be talking about as well. So before we let you go, though, we got a couple fun questions to go.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you guys have said this is a passion project for you. Throw legal reasons away, throw universes, etc. If you wanted to bring in any character from any comic, any pop culture into the world of No Gods, No Masters, who would it be and why?
I was gonna say I'm still like in kaiju brain. I think Hidra would be like such a natural fit for our book
Yeah. Yeah.
because there is like a environmentalism like aspect to the kaiju. We'll get into that a little later. You know, I guess save spoilers. I don't know. But I think I think Hidra, but just because I want to draw Daredevil, I would also draw Daredevil, which fits
Yeah,
into the
it's
meat.
funny. My first thought was Punisher. Let's throw
Yeah.
Punisher
Oh,
in our world.
yeah. Yeah.
What would
Punisher
that
would
be
fit
like?
naturally. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be the same.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. And then, what is your both favorite kaiju stories or characters?
All right, I answered that one then.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah. I mean, Godzilla versus Hedorah is like a touch point for both of us, just from like a character design perspective, but also like it is one of the great Godzilla movies, and it has like a very sharp, I think, political message about destroying the world, and now this smog monster was created because of our own waste and how we
Mhm.
treat the planet. But, I really love, the original Ultraman series before Ultraman was even created. It's called Ultra Q. I really love that. It's kind of like Twilight Zone meets Kaijus, where it's telling, very grounded personal stories about people interacting with Kaiju. I guess it's a big inspiration for No Gods, No Masters. But I also, characters like I love this guy. I love Manila.
Oh, nice.
He's Son of Godzilla was the first Godzilla movie I ever saw as a kid on Sci-Fi Channel. And it was, like the goofy US dubs, English dubs. And that was just my perception of Godzilla back then. It was just like very goofy Showa era, stuff until I saw the original, and I obviously, as I got older, Shin Godzilla and Godzilla Minus One, like, are the great Godzilla movies, but I have a soft spot in my heart for Manila.
Yeah, I love -1. I would also throw that in there. Boom.
Oh, there you go. And I guarantee you, after this issue comes out, fans are going to be saying about how they want to see more of No Gods, No Masters, because that's going to be up there in one of the great kaiju stories, without question.
Thank you.
Folks, I can't stress enough. If you see Julio Anta and Jacoby Salcedo name on any book, go buy them. Buy multiple copies. You won't be disappointed. Beast of Boriken, issue number 2 comes out this week as we record. You want to go pick up that story. It's such a powerful social message along with a very cool supernatural edge. And then September 2nd, No Gods, No Masters. I mean, what else can we say about this? But this book is just awesome, period. And it's going to be the next big thing. I'm going to call it right now. And we're definitely going to talk about Fanlight Zone. Everybody needs to go out and support this book. Guys, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We definitely have to recap after the series is up.
Thank you.
Definitely.
We really
We'll
appreciate it. Yeah, happy to come back.
Absolutely. And in the liner notes of this episode as well is a special link for a petition. Julio, do you want to close us out about what that petition is all about?
Sure. So I talked a little bit earlier about the real life inspiration behind Beast of Boriken, the Essentia project. This is a 20,000 20,000 acre project that's being built in Cabo Rojo in Puerto Rico. It is just reached a new milestone of reaching, its construction, which is it just got a land permit from the government. And this is a project that will encroach on 3 miles of beaches, on forests, on protected coastal regions, on sacred archaeological sites. It's really, truly a disaster for the people, but also the island, from an ecological perspective. So there's a petition that you can sign that Ken very graciously linked to, essentially to just say no to the Essentia project. And as time goes on, there's if you follow me on Instagram, I'm always reposting from different activists and organizations that are organizing against this, whether it's on the island or in the mainland U.S. So definitely keep an eye out for all that.
Yeah, so definitely make sure to click on that, whether it's on the YouTube channel or the podcast form, and definitely make sure you cast your vote for that. And also pick up these books, because what Julio and Jacoby do every time out is nothing but win. And like I say, I'm going to be here talking until I'm red in the face, because honestly, No Gods, No Masters is that good. Beast of Boriken is right up there with the two. I don't want to undersell that. Both these books need to be in your collection. Definitely hit us up on Fanlight Zone socials and let us know what you think about them. So that being said, thank you for checking out another edition of Fanlight Zone Presents. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.